My person of interest in psychology was B.F. Skinner. So, Burius Frederick Skinner was born on 19/20th, 1904 in a small town, Sequania, Pennsylvania. His father was a lawyer and his mother stayed home raising him and his brother. Overall, they had a really warm, loving home environment. So, originally, Skinner wanted to become a novelist, but throughout his um, time getting his bachelor's degree, he discovered he did want to become a scientist. In 1936, he married Yvonne Blue, who he called Eve. They later had two daughters. So, some interesting facts is that Skinner not only was great at writing, but he had an early passion for craftsmanship. Um, when he was young, he would make toys, in his early 20s, furniture. When he became a father, he made an invention called the air crib. This was for his second daughter. Um, he had high hopes of making infant parenting more convenient as well as bringing comfort for the baby. The crib had convenient features such as its height, so parents didn't have to bend over and pick the baby up, easy sheet changing procedures. Now, the ceiling in glass was kind of like a cage like structure, enabling the parent to keep the temperature at a desired heat and humidity via an air control box. So, this is when he lived in Minnesota. It got really cold there, so this was a nice, convenient way to keep the baby warm. The crib also consisted of an air filter, which could be changed. Now, many of the features are what we would find useful today. Skinner intended for infants to have room without blanket and extra clothing. So when SIDS is the main thing nowadays, so doctors recommend for you to not have any blankets on the infants. So he actually was kind of going toward that direction. So the babies wouldn't have to have a blanket. And then also they wore less clothing, so it would be less laundry for mom and dad. That was his thought process behind it. However, he received a lot of backlash for this due to bad public presentation. There was an article that came out called Baby in a Box, and it was labeled as an experiment. Instead of it getting great publicity, and which I personally think it's a pretty cool invention, it got a lot of backlash because he was a scientist and because he had already made some other creations. So, yeah, bad publicity is why this did not further prosper. Now, as previously mentioned, Skinner wanted to become a great novelist. So he set out to Hamilton University. That's where he received his Bachelor of Arts in English in 1926. And then in 1931, he received his PhD in psychology at Harvard. 1936, he moved to Minnesota University, where he taught there. He also taught at the Indiana University. And then in 1948, he returned to Harvard, and he remained there for the remainder of his career. That's where he retired, and even after his retirement, his official retirement, he continued to do research until he passed. Studying at Harvard as a graduate student, Skinner designed a device that people called the Skinner box. he referred to it as experimental space. So this tool allowed him to observe and analyze animal behavior in a controlled setting. They had tunnels, holes, levers to press, and the rat was free to move around as it pleased in a comfortable but controlled environment. Um, and then as soon as the rat pressed a lever, food would be dispensed. So the study showed that behavior can be influenced by rewarding actions as we want to encourage and by reducing rewards for actions we want to discourage. This is called operant conditioning. And the box also contribute to reinforcement schedules, such as how often rewards are given and how they will influence our learning experiences. So Skinner believed that psychologists had the right to influence society and maybe more of an obligation to influence society to make it better. Um, he did go back into tap into like his novelty writing, and he wrote a book called Walden 2. In this book, everyone had pretty simple lives. They all had their own property. Collectively, they raised children together. It was mostly agricultural environment, and they only worked 4 hours a day. They also they took what they only needed, so they consumed whatever was only necessary. Um, in this model, there was very little government or religion. So basically, the main key point of his book uh, was that human civilization um, has been, if we work collectively without rulers and whatnot, that it would be a better place for our society. So throughout human civilization, we've had kings and presidents, and basically they abuse the power and they use it to advance their own interests.